What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be going over things that you should practice or improve on before the start of Chapter 4. If you guys do find this video helpful or informative, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and comment down below any other ideas you have for something like this down in the comments below. So, with Chapter 4 coming out, the game is going to change pretty significantly. We're going to get a new map, and we're probably going to get a very different loot pool, meaning that a lot of the informative content I would typically make around this time, who knows how much that is going to hold up. You know, if I make a video about how to use the prime shotgun better, or how to use the hunter bolt sniper, the goo gun better, whatever, it's probably outdated in a few days. So in this video, I'm going to focus more on like overarching things or things that you can practice right now that should still have an impact when it comes to Chapter 4. So the first thing we're going to talk about is settings and keybinds. I know a lot of people oftentimes aren't very happy with their settings or aren't very happy with their keybinds. Like, they know what improvements they want to make, but they're kind of scared to try out a new sense, or they're scared to change up the keybinds because of that adjustment period. It takes a little while to get used to it. And right now is perfect for that. We have like 5 days left in the season, or 4 days left in this season. And who really cares what happens between now and then, you know? Like, with the whole chapter shifting over, so much of the game is going to change. Who cares about how many crowns you had this season? Who cares about how many wins you had this season? A few extra days of playing like standard, or not going outside of your comfort zone, really doesn't help you that much. But if you change your keybinds now, or you change your sensitivity now to something that you think would be more ideal, you still have a few days to get adjusted to it and get used to it, and use this time for something beneficial rather than kind of just stagnating. I know a lot of players are kind of like bored with the game and they don't really kind of care right now. So this is a really ideal time for you to potentially like fine tune your settings and find what works best for you. The next thing is obviously going to be fighting, like I talk about in many videos. Stop playing passive, or if you want to get better, don't just hide all game and kind of force those fights, land at hot locations, and fight other players. Like I just said a few seconds ago, who cares about stats from this season in a few days when the new season starts, you know? So you can use this time effectively and get more comfortable fighting, get a lot of reps in fighting, and get better at fighting in Fortnite. And that will also have a large impact on your gameplay when we go into Chapter 4. So the meta will probably change pretty significantly. So even if you're practicing with something like the prime shotgun or the ranger shotgun and the hammer AR, like, odds are these weapons might not be here next season. But the act of fighting, you know, playing off right shoulder peaks, hitting your jump shots, piece control if you're playing build mode, getting high ground if you're playing build mode, all of these factors should transfer over to Chapter 4, even if the loot pool changes, even if the map changes, even if some mechanics in the game change. At the end of the day, Fortnite is Fortnite. Like, using things like right shoulder peaks, making good edit plays, resetting your walls effectively after making edit plays. There's like a few things that are just consistent always within Fortnite, and a lot of that has to do with fighting. The way you fight doesn't change too much regardless of how the game changes. So whatever you feel like you're weak at fighting, if you think you're bad mid-range, if you think you're bad close range, try to get in as many of those fights as possible. Don't really worry about the outcome as much. Use these last few days to practice and get as good as you can get for Chapter 4 coming out. And I think fighting is a big one for a lot of people, especially just, I think being comfortable fighting is a really big thing that a lot of newer players don't really familiarize themselves with, because they really want to get wins, and that results in people kind of playing passive and avoiding conflict, hoping to just, you know, last longer in the game and hopefully get that win. But the more you fight, the more comfortable you get fighting, the better you're going to do in the long run. I think just being more comfortable fighting and not necessarily being nervous is a big thing that kind of is like a hurdle a lot of BR players have to get over. And once you get over that hurdle of being nervous fighting, I think you're going to be much, much, much better in game. Also, something like weapon swapping is an example of what I could have talked about before, where like knowing how to swap weapons and being consistent in that is something I know a lot of people struggle with. Another thing that I think a lot of people could use this time to improve upon is whatever bad habits you have. If your piece control isn't very good, if you're often like 50-50ing players, or just like kind of full committing to a fight when you don't have initial tags or initial damage, bad crosshair placement, I don't know if I said that. There's a lot of like bad habits. If you're consistently like out in the wide open area getting fried, like this could be, you know, a bad habit that you need to work on. Whatever you think is losing you a lot of games, like when you lose, think about why you lost that game. And oftentimes, you don't need to be too specific about it, but oftentimes this is kind of going to lead back to one mistake. If like your shotgun aim is bad and you're just always missing your shotgun shots, and that leads to you losing close range fights, when you get better shotgun aim, you'll be good. If you're often getting shot from like a bunch of different angles at once, That's a positioning problem. Once you improve that, you'll win so many more games as a result of it. So try to think about whatever your bad habits are, whatever mistakes you frequently make, and try to work on those. In the meantime, similar to settings, it takes a little while to adjust to that or kind of work on that issue. But once you've done it and you've gotten used to it and you've gotten better at that, you're not going to make that mistake as much anymore. And you're not going to be losing games as a result of that in Chapter 4. This next thing is also kind of similar to the settings, and I think it is just to go outside of your comfort zone as far as weapons go. I know a lot of zero build players, for example, really like the high fire rate shotguns because the auto shotgun has been like the ideal shotgun for zero build for most of this chapter. But if you've been using like the Evo Chrome shotty this season, even though it's kind of a bit weaker than the auto shotty, go outside of your comfort zone and use one of the slower firing shotguns like the Prime or the Ranger shotgun. It's a different playstyle, but who knows what shotgun we're going to have next season. So being familiar with all of them and being as like well-rounded with all of them as you can, I think could be really helpful in Chapter 4 because you're not like forcing yourself into one playstyle, which may or may not be like the meta next season. And the same thing goes with ARs. I know, once again, a lot of zero build players had been using the first-person ARs like the MK7 or the Striker Burst Rifle for like all of Chapter 3. And then when this season comes, and we didn't have as ideal of a first-person AR, we had the Cobra DMR, which is quite good, but it's not as ideal as those other ones. And a lot of those players, I feel like, that were kind of just full committed to that first-person playstyle, just kind of went with the Cobra DMR, even if they didn't really like it, because they weren't comfortable using the third-person weapons like the Hammer AR. And I feel like now is a good time to potentially familiarize yourself with those third-person weapons, maybe something like the pistol, whatever weapon or whatever weapon type you really haven't been using. Try to get the hang of it, because who knows what the meta is going to be next season, you know? We might be in a meta where it's like slow shotgun and third-person assault rifle meta, like traditional pump scar. And if you're someone who's only been using first-person weapons and only been using high fire rate shotguns, you're going to be maybe not terrible next season, but you're going to have to adjust to that playstyle. Whereas if you try to get good with as many weapons that are in the game right now, you're going to be more well-rounded and more able to adapt to those other weapon types, I feel like. And the final thing is just going to be to use creative. I have a video I will link in the description down below that I made last season of a lot of my favorite creative maps to use. Nothing has really changed in that regard, but I think using creative is one of the most important things that helps a lot of players get better at the game. It's just a way more efficient way to practice things. If you think about a normal game, for a lot of players, a 10 kill game might be a high kill game for them. You know what I mean? That's 1 kill every 2 minutes, roughly, if a game is around 20 minutes or so. You can get in 10 fights in less than 3 minutes in creative, and just getting those reps in so much faster is really beneficial. There's also building maps, editing maps, piece control maps. All of these things are way more efficient ways to practice and improve in the game. And then there is also aim training maps. I don't think these are the most helpful because it's very different just shooting static targets versus shooting players in game that strafe and try to, you know, throw you off. But creative is the best way to improve, I think. There's lots of different ways for you to fight people. There's lots of different mechanics for you to practice on these maps. Like I said, there will be a video linked down in the description below of the creative maps I recommend. And another thing I forgot to talk about, this would kind of fit into the bad habits section, is being a hard target to hit. I've talked about this in several videos, but you want to be as inconvenient for your opponent to fight as possible. But when a lot of people are newer to the game, they don't really feel comfortable moving and shooting and like kind of strafing and being a hard target to hit while also consistently landing shots. And that's another thing you can practice. I think that's the example I was looking for when I was talking about the bad habits. I just couldn't think about it, so I went to the next section. But yeah, being a hard target to hit, it's really beneficial in any shooter, but it's especially beneficial in Fortnite. That is going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys found it helpful and informative. I hope you're able to practice some of these things and maybe expand yourself as a player going into Chapter 4, because who knows what the meta is going to be, who knows what the map is going to be. It's probably going to be a very different game when we get on to play Chapter 4. But if you guys did find this helpful and informative, give it a like, subscribe, comment down below what you're going to practice going into Chapter 4, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.